It's election day here in the United States, and as I sit here recording this, and probably as you sit there watching this, assuming that you're watching it not too long after I released it, polls won't be closing for several more hours yet. Anxiety is high. So let's take a break from politics just for a little bit, and I'll tell you all about the most bonkers new medical show on TV. It's called Brilliant Minds, and it airs Monday nights on NBC, and then it's streaming next day on Peacock. And I just want to make it clear, this is not a paid endorsement. This is not an advertisement for the show Brilliant Minds, as will soon become clear. But at the same time, I'm definitely not telling you not to watch it. Brilliant Minds stars Zachary Quinto as Dr. Oliver Wolf, a neurologist at Bronx General Hospital. Pre-air commercials for the series pitched it as being about a doctor who treats his patients, not their diseases. And he does this by trying to see the world through their eyes and experience what they experience. And my initial thought upon seeing those commercials was, how is that a show? And now that I have seen the first 6 episodes of Brilliant Minds that have aired as of the time I'm making this video, I can tell you that I'm still not sure how that's a show. What is it about Brilliant Minds that has got me hooked, that has got me borderline obsessed with it, that has got me so excited to tell you about it today to distract you from your election-related angst? Well, the main thing about the show that appeals to me is this show has so many gimmicks. There are so many gimmicks built into this show. Here is a list. These are just the ones I came up with from memory off the top of my head as I was writing my notes for this video. First of all, the show is a House clone. You remember the show House starring Hugh Laurie? Well, it's a lot like that in the sense that Dr. Wolf is a brilliant doctor, and the format of the show is a case a week. Every episode focuses on a different case and a different patient coming into the hospital. Dr. Wolf, like House, is serving as a reluctant mentor figure to a team of young interns, but Dr. Wolf is not really a Dr. House character type. He's not an asshole genius. He's more just kind of socially awkward. He cares very deeply about his patients and about his medical practice and really wants to help people, but because he's so single-mindedly focused on this, he just wants to help his patients so much that he comes off as kind of a dick to other people because all he cares about is his patients. Also, Wolf suffers from face blindness. Also, Wolf has a borderline obsessive affinity for plants, especially ferns. Also, Wolf has a tragic backstory, which is revealed bit by bit via lengthy flashbacks in each episode so far. The backstory involves Wolf's father, who suffered from some sort of mental illness and eventually ran off during a camping trip with young Wolf and died in the woods somehow. It's implied that he took his own life, but that has not been firmly established as of yet. Also, Wolf's mother is also a doctor, and wouldn't you know it, she's in charge of the hospital where he works now. He works for his mother. Also, Wolf has narrated every episode that has aired so far through, let's call them, extremely writerly, pseudo-intellectual voiceovers. Also, one of Wolf's interns has an anxiety disorder that causes panic attacks. One may be suffering from CTE as a result of a college football injury. One has an extremely rare neurological condition called mirror touch synesthesia that causes him to experience the emotional and physical sensations experienced by other people, including their patients. And one is just an ordinary person so far. Oh, and there's a patient at the hospital, a John Doe. They don't know his real name or where he comes from or anything like that. He's just a mystery patient. And it's been thought that he was in a vegetative state all this time, but then Wolf kind of makes the guy his personal project, and now Wolf and his team have discovered that he's not in a vegetative state. His condition is, well, I don't want to spoil it in case you decide to watch the show, but his condition is much different and more complicated and more wrought with dramatic potential than previously thought, and that has been a recurring plot as well. Anything else? Like, one of the pleasures of watching this show so far has been to anticipate the new episodes and see what else they're going to pile onto this already incredibly busy show. And if you're thinking that all of that I just said doesn't really sound like very much, remember, almost all of that stuff that I just went through is either built into the premise of the show or is revealed to be a key aspect of one of the main characters. None of it is the basis for the plot of a single episode. The main episode plots are all patients of the week. Someone comes into the hospital, there's something wrong with their brain. Dr. Wolf and his team figure it out. Like I said, the show is a house clone, but a house clone is only part of what it is. And all of this that I just got done describing, all of the character quirks and backstories and all of the various complications of the premise, we're 6 episodes in. 6 episodes. And we know all of this about the show and these characters already. And if you still don't get why I find this all so hilarious and so compelling in a can you believe this shit kind of way, maybe this will help. I know I've got some Star Trek fans in the audience. So imagine if in Star Trek The Next Generation, we found out that Captain Picard's baldness was the result of a tragic backstory, that we learn a piece at a time across multiple shows, and also that Picard's estranged mother was the admiral he reported to at Starfleet, and also that Riker likes the trombone and hates his father, and also that Dr. Crusher knows how to dance and is also an avid amateur theater director, and also that Worf accidentally killed another kid in a soccer game when he was a teenager, and also Counselor Troy had a sister who died as a child, and also Wesley is a special boy with time-space superpowers. Oh, and also, Picard loves archaeology and Data has an evil twin. And now imagine that we found out all of that in the first 6 episodes of the show. That would be nuts, right? I know! Speaking of Star Trek, Zachary Quinto, who of course plays Spock in the 3 most recent Star Trek movies, is really quite good in this show. He's a great actor, and he is throwing himself into this utterly ridiculous show and doing everything he can to sell it, even when his character, who I remind you is a doctor, is written to do things like regularly meddle in the personal lives of his patients and take street drugs discovered in a patient's personal effects. Drugs that turn out to contain PCP. That's a fun episode when Dr. Wolf spends like 3/4 of the episode high on PCP because they find some pills in the purse of their patient of the week. And he says, well, to understand what her affliction is like, I need to understand what her life is like. So let me take these drugs that we just found, these unlabeled mystery drugs that we found in her purse. Let me just take one and see what happens. Yoink. That's what this show is. That's the kind of show that we're dealing with here. But it's not just Zachary Quinto. The entire cast of this is really strong. It's packed with really good actors. And even though it is a show centered on a white male protagonist, Dr. Wolf is, like Zachary Quinto is in real life, a gay man, and the fact that he is gay is treated as the most normal and boring thing about him. Like, it's not a show about, oh, it's a show about a gay doctor. No, it's just, he just happens to be gay, and it hasn't become like a centerpiece of the show. It's just a part of his character, a part of his personality, a part of his orientation, and I think that's been handled really well so far. And also, the supporting cast has a degree of gender balance and racial diversity that is very nice to see. Plus, the show's primary setting, Bronx General Hospital, is kind of a rundown and underfunded hospital. It's not one of these futuristic sci-fi TV hospitals, or even like a state-of-the-art world-class medical institution like the one that House worked at. I unironically dig that about the show. There are things about the show that I unironically like. It's clearly being made by very talented people who are trying really hard. They're trying too hard, really. And since I love how over the top and how extra the show has been so far, I hope they continue to try too hard. And in fact, I hope they try even harder. Let's see how fucking nuts we can get this thing before it's inevitably canceled, huh? You know who I'm watching for now? I mean, aside from everything else I've just told you that really appeals to me about this show, one of the major hooks that gets me interested in watching each subsequent new episode of Brilliant Minds is I want to know what's going to turn out to be the thing with Dr. Kinney. Dr. Kinney is the only one of the 4 interns who doesn't have a thing yet. So far, she's just the ordinary one, right? She doesn't have a thing unless you count her being like a driven overachiever type as being a thing. But in the context of this show, I don't think that's nearly interesting enough to count as her thing. So I can't wait to see what her thing is gonna be. And she's a character on a benignly trashy, aggressively middlebrow, incredibly extra hospital show that centers on neurology. So if I had to guess, I would tell her to enjoy her brain tumor. If the show lasts long enough for her to develop one anyway, which I hope it does. I love genuinely good TV. But when I am bored or creatively blocked or stressed out about, whatever, nothing beats enjoyably bad TV for an entertaining, undemanding distraction. And on days like today, and let's be honest, probably tomorrow and possibly for the rest of this week, I'll take all of that I can get.